Hello, I hope you're doing great. Today we are going to continue talking about how you can prepare to work with MAUI Blazor. Now, for working with MAUI Blazor, there are certain things that you need to be aware of, especially if you want to be able to reutilize the packages or the code that you already have, your custom .NET libraries, right? Okay, so things to know, right? You will be able to start working with MAUI Blazor on .NET 6. Currently, currently Microsoft has the .NET 6 Preview 5 that you can use on Visual Studio 2019 Preview. Okay, now after you configure your development environment for supporting MAUI, you will be able to create projects with the MAUI Blazor template. That MAUI Blazor template will give you a structure like the one we will display in a second, like this one. Okay. By the way, before continuing, please remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, invite more people, and hit the thumbs up on the video. Okay, so this is the default um, template or the default uh, solution structure that you get when you create a new MAUI Blazor project. You get a WinUI project, which is the one for targeting Windows, and you get the other project, which is the one targeting Android, iOS, and Mac Catalyst. Okay, now you see that in this case we have all of these files, right? And we have here the startup.cs. This startup.cs, you will see that there is also one startup.cs in this other project. It seems to be actually the same, and I believe those are linked files, right? So that's one of the first things you need to know. So that file is going to be your startup, right? As in any other .NET application, but it will be executed when you run any of the projects. Why that is important? Because usually the startup is where you start adding the code for uh, configuring your dependency injection and your um, external services too, right? Now, if you are consuming external libraries of your own, you will need to add the reference in both of the projects, right? So if you are going to use that library for the mobile devices, right, you will have to add it in here. And if you are going to use that library in your WinUI project, you will need to add it in here. Also, there is something that you need to be aware of, right? Starting on .NET 6, yeah, I believe this was added in .NET 6. We they have what it's called as target framework monikers, right? And it allows you to specify the um, targets any library is going to be built for, right? So if you see, this is a the project definition for one of our libraries, right? for PTI that uses the Azure Translator. And you see that here you will usually have something like target framework, right? And I believe it's net 6.0, I believe, right? But now you see that this one is modified and it actually has an S, target frameworks, right? And you add multiple frameworks separated by semicolon. And when you are going to add the any project, you will be able to see it on the project documentation in NuGet. For example, you see that we had already added in here, but if you hadn't added, you will still see something like this. You see that it is for .NET 6, it is for iOS, it is for Mac Catalyst, and it is for Windows, right? And it tells you what it depends on, right? So that's important to know, because if you do not add the target framework monitor or target frameworks to the project, you actually encounter a lot of issues when you try to reference those external libraries or libraries of your own, right? So you need to modify them. Also, um, since you may want to have a lot of cross-compatible code, it makes sense to have your libraries as small as possible, so they do not have a lot of external dependencies to increase the chances that you will be able to reutilize those libraries in all of the platforms, right? There are things that you may not be able to do in certain platforms because the SDKs that you are consuming may not exist for those platforms, right? So you need to be a little bit careful with that, right? So after you do that, for example, for this one, we separated the PTI.microservices library, right? And this is already configured for .NET 6 in my local development, right? This NuGet package is local, and you see that I can go. I'll test this in Windows. Then with that run, I should be able to use it, right? And the only thing that this application does at the moment is it has a text field and it will translate from English to Spanish, right? So I didn't even clean the default template for this project. So you see, and I hit the translate text, and you will see that here we will get the actual translation, right? And now, if I execute this one, I should be able to do the same in the Android emulator version of um, of this. So it's running, it's deploying the latest version, and let's see. Now with the Android emulator version, I have found that currently it behaves a little bit weird. So let me see if you see that my debugger actually, it never started, it just closed, right? So yeah, it behaves a little bit weird sometimes. And the application, like, it seems like that it doesn't close, but for some reason it kind of minimize. So let's see, it's compiling everything, and after that I'll run it again and see um, if it stays open and connected to my debugger. So let's wait some time and we'll continue. So it says it's deploying. Debugger attached. And yeah, you see that it actually kind of throws it right. So let's just run it. Translate the text. And you see that it actually translated. So this is just the same application, but yeah, you see that the debugger behaves a little bit weird um, in this kind of applications, right? But that hasn't been happening all the time. I do not know exactly when that happens. I believe it may happen when I have multiple instances of Visual Studio Preview open, but I can't be sure of it at the moment. Um, okay, the other thing is a tip that you may want to know, right? So remember that when you are working with MAUI Blazor, you are basically using Blazor code, which is conform of HTML and CSS, right? It basically allows you to use your web development skills, right? And one of the things that happens is that you are basically executing your code or using a browser, right? Or a web viewer. So one of the things that you will be able to do when you are seeing these kinds of application is if you select it and hit F12, you will be able to see the developer tools, right? And then you can do something like click in here and go and navigate and inspect your HTML and your code, right, and verify or do temporary changes and things like that, right? So I haven't tested this, but let's see if this actually changes immediately. Yes, it did. So you can start exploring things like that when you are uh, using your MAUI Blazor applications, right? Which is really useful. Okay, so remember, you need to make sure that your libraries that you want to reuse in MAUI Blazor applications have the target framework monikers, right? And all of the target frameworks that those libraries are going to be supported on, right? And you will need to import them on each of the projects that you will need them, right? Remember, the startup file that you see in the WinUI project is the same startup file that you see in the other project. So any usings that you add in here will be reflected on this project. That's actually one of the reasons why you need to add the reference in both projects. Otherwise, you will have using code that will compile in one project that it won't compile on the other, right? So you need to make sure of that. I'm sorry. You need to make sure that you add those references in both projects. Hope this has been useful, and please remember to subscribe to the channel and share the videos. Thank you very much. Have a great day.